it's Snorgle. Welcome back to Exploring Minecraft. So, this is the video the series where I just explore Minecraft. I move in one direction. This direction? Yes, this direction. Oh, I failed to get in my boat, and then we just move in this direction, and I talk about a topic. Think of it like a podcast, but we're in Minecraft. Just talking about a topic. Today I thought I'd talk about something because I was reminded by a friend who, I mentioned before, he wanted to start a podcast, and I gave him some advice, and I told him that the best advice I can give you is just have fun. Do something that you really love and have fun. If you're approaching this from the standpoint of this is going to be monetarily advantageous for me, probably not the best in the world. That depends on what your goals are, right? Depends on what your goals are. I understand. Like, I get it, but it does. But I think that just start having fun first. I think that's to me that's important. And he kind of didn't listen to me, and sort of unrealistically thought he was going to get sponsors, a bunch of other stuff, and that's like, that just takes time. Like, it takes time to get ears in your podcast. It takes time to I feel like it takes time to get your voice. All that just takes time. And he was talking about it, and he said he was really bummed because he felt like he failed. And I was kind of telling him, you don't. I told him I didn't agree that he failed. I think you literally gave yourself a couple of months. I don't think that's enough time. You got to find your feet. You got to find your voice. And you have to find your audience. There's an enormous amount of competition. The amount of competition in the podcast world is just crazy. And that you have to learn what works and what doesn't work. And that made me want to think, whoa, lava. That made me think, they're talking a little about failure and because I know a lot of people who don't do stuff because a fear that they will fail. And I'm not talking about, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about something like where, you put your entire life savings on the line to open the bakery you always wanted to do. That's just foolhardy, right? I mean, so I was talking to my friend a little bit. I'm trying to convince him and trying to tell him that I mean, you can set goals for yourself, but if you haven't even started, they're kind of arbitrary, And so I thought it would make a good conversation because I feel like I don't have a huge fear of failing. And part of it is just because of the way I look at it. And I want to get something out of the way here. There's a stupid saying in tech: fail early and fail often. It can be fail fast and fail often. And I don't agree with that concept. I don't agree with that conceptually. I think what that does is you end up getting mediocre work. I really do. It's a little bit like, I mentioned before, I used to make video games for advertising agencies. I did it professionally. I would concept, create, and develop and write games for advertising agencies. And one of the things that advertising agencies do, this is in creatives, is when they're concepting a campaign. This is very common, and I never understood it, and I always think it's dumb. Because, I'm a formally trained musician. I understand how to inspire yourself and come up with ideas. It's kind of my thing. Not just mine, but, most professional musicians, I would say that's the case. If you're a formally trained musician and you're a professional, that has to be the case. So, advertising agencies do this thing where, you have the creatives just literally just spew out anything they can do. Their ideas to get 100, 200 ideas. None of them are targeted, none of them are interesting, and the whole idea is just volume. If you get that many, there's bound to be one that's okay. You wonder why advertising looks like it does today, right? That's why. And I think that's madness. And I think it breeds mediocrity. And I think it's the exact same thing as the text saying fail early and fail often. It's the wrong way to view it. And so, you're asking me, well, how do you view it? Well, I look at when I'm doing things, it's iterative, right? I'm going through and I'm learning. And so I will, when I'm trying to learn something new, let's say, okay, so lately I've been trying to learn a new skateboarding trick. I've been trying to learn a nollie impossible, which not many people do because it's really hard. And I've got front foot impossibles down pretty decent, but I'm trying to learn a nollie impossible. It's really hard, but I go out a couple times a week and I practice a nollie impossible, and I've gotten it once, but I haven't gotten it the other times. I'm getting better at it. I'm definitely getting better at it. I'm getting closer to getting it, but it's just a hard trick and it takes time. And I've got a full-time job and a YouTube channel, and I can't go skating for 8 hours a day, much as I'd like to. But I don't consider all those times I practice and don't get it failures, right? It's just putting into work to succeed. And I think that there's a difference. You have to put in the work to succeed. You have to go through the iterations when you're learning how to do it. What are those lights? See that? Is that I never can tell. I always think the lighting at night here is interesting in Minecraft. Maybe it's the lava? I don't know. We'll see. Come up right next to it, so definitely check it out. I don't think it's lava. I think it's just, sometimes there's just lights. Sometimes there's just lights. That seems to be the case. Something light. Uh-oh. About to run out of land. This is so trippy, this biome. Anyway, so, and I think about it like this way. Like if you're a musician and you're learning to do a particular lick or particular technique, most people wouldn't say as you practice it and trying to get it down that all the times you don't get that right, you're failing. Because you're not. You're just practicing. That's what practicing is. You're trying new things. You're getting yourself outside of your comfort range, which, by the way, is the thing that I highly recommend. Get outside of your comfort range. Desert temple? Huh. I don't think I've seen one on its own island. That's interesting. So if you get yourself outside of your comfort range, what does that mean? Do things that you haven't done before. Do things that you're not comfortable with. Take something to an extreme that's more extreme than you've done before, right? Let's see. This is so. Look how far down that goes. That's so weird. How do I get up there? I think we're gonna go. Hold on. Can I go back a little bit? Hold on. Oh my gosh, turn around. Okay. I'm facing, wait, which way? Okay, I'm facing around. Okay, turn around. Okay. Okay. Did I get it? Did I get it? Yes. Okay. Huh. Okay. Let's check down here. As we want to do. The heck? Let's go. So that's the first type of non-failure, right? Is learning something. There's a new thing you're trying, and you're not going to succeed at first because things just take time. Let's be honest. Some things are inherently difficult, and they just take time. And not getting it right away is not a failure. It's the entire learning process. It's how it works. So, what about the case where you're not learning it, right? What a case you're trying something, you know how to do it, you're just not succeeding. So I looked up a statistic for this, and it's really interesting. Really world-class, like sports ball, like baseball hitters, right? I know, I'm using a sports ball reference. Interesting, isn't it? They miss the ball 70% of the time. Think about that. World-class athletes do not succeed 70% of the time. 70% of the time, their goal is to hit the ball, I assume, and they don't do it 70% of the time. And with the Snorgle, that's completely different. It's not, though. You can miss the ball 70% of the time and still win a sports ball game, and still be considered literally at the peak of your athletic skill and prowess, right? Wait, where's the... Oh my gosh. It's all filled in. That's the craziest thing. Oh, that's so weird. So this is where the treasure should be. And it's not here. Oh, that's so weird. Yeah, it should be right here. The chest isn't even here. Nothing's here. Wait, what's that? Why are there bubbles? Why are there bubbles? That was weird. Why bubbles? How odd. There's not even a space for the chests. Oh my gosh. Okay, so space sports ball guys at the top of their game. Don't hit the ball 70% of the time. You would not say that's where am I going? How do we get out of here? This way? How do we get out of here? I somehow dug myself in. Hold on. Let's do this. We'll just go up here. It's fine. Nope. Come here. Oh, man. What did I do? There. Here we go. Okay. So, we'll set a bed here. Why not? Okay, so, but so then the other question might be, well, if you lose a game, is that considered failure? I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure it is. I think that I think if you think of it in terms of get out of here. I feel like if you think of it in terms of somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. And so what if you have a situation where like somebody loses, right? Because somebody has to. It's a requirement of the game. I mean, you could tie, but let's, whatever. So there's not a convenient place for me to put this down. So we're just going to do this. I don't need any more gold. I'm okay. I'll take some obsidian, sure. Where's my obsidian? There. I don't really need anything else. I don't need a gapple. Wait. No, I don't need those boots either. Which way are we headed? This way? Yes, this way. Let's just swim. So, and the thing is, I feel like that not winning or not achieving what you want to achieve is a pathway to achieving it. And if you achieved something all the time, it's meaningless. I mean, every time every human being on the planet breathes, right? Breathes air. up to the point that you pass away. And you don't forget about breathing air, right? And it's the same with everything else. You need to not succeed in order to succeed, right? In order for succeeding to mean anything, if you succeed 100% of the time, then success is meaningless. That's the base. That's the baseline. That's the base set of affairs, right? That's what just normal stuff is. So in order for you to not succeed, that's what makes success so interesting. So something like, there's a parrot there. So, and I understand that, like, if you're trying to do something, we'll stop sports ball talks, we'll make it into more real life. You're trying to do something. You're personally trying to do something, and you're trying to get it, and you're unable to get it. And, I think, I don't think I'm going to go around. I think I'm going around here. And sometimes it can be very frustrating, right? It can be very personally frustrating and emotionally difficult to deal with if you're trying something and you can't get it. And you're giving it your best and it's not working. And, I firmly believe that most people, given realistic expectations, right? I think that most people can achieve reasonable goals. So, like, I had my bestie said, this is an interesting thing, right? That she set a goal for herself. She felt like that she hadn't really tested her endurance, physical endurance, And so she decided that she was going to set herself, she was going to train and set herself an endurance test. And the endurance test she chose is an Ironman. She's one of those amazing people I've ever met. So think about that. That's your first. Your endurance test is an Ironman. An Ironman, I don't know what it is, but you basically you swim like 5 miles or something like that, and then you run a marathon, and then you like bike 100 something miles or something like that. It's just crazy. It takes hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to finish. And so her goal was she wanted to finish in the allotted time. So I think they allow you 17 hours to finish. I think. Might be 18, something like that. So it's an enormous amount of time for you to be constantly testing your endurance. And so she trained for 6 months, I think, and then did it. And she finished like 1 minute before they were going to close. And she considered that a success. By all metrics, it is. And I asked her, would she have considered that a success if she hadn't hit that mark? And she said her goal, she really wanted to do that. And that's what she told everybody, because that motivated her. But her goal was just to finish it. She just wanted to finish it. And she would really, really like to finish it in the time allotted. But if she didn't, that was fine. She would still consider that a success. And I think setting realistic goals helps you achieve successes. So things like, I could say I want to run a marathon. I enjoy running. I'm in pretty good shape. I enjoy running. I've never run any kind of long distance things. I don't have a huge desire to. But if I look at it and say, wow, my goal is to run a sub 2 hour marathon. That's just fantasy. That's never going to happen, ever. That's a world-class marathoner goal. You're just not going to do it. Same thing with setting up. I worked with this guy whose wife was apparently a good cook, and it was like, oh, you should have your own restaurant. And so she opened her own restaurant, and with no training in running a restaurant, no business training, and she failed. I mean, she went out of business. And I'm not talking that, that don't feel bad about that. And I'm sorry that happened, but you couldn't see that one coming. Like, you can't just do stuff and hope that it's going to work out. Those are so cool looking. Whoa. And so I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about things like that. I'm talking about more realistic things, And things that are outside of your control, like my friend in his podcast. He in the first 3 months, he thought he would get, I don't remember how many thousands. He thought he would get thousands and thousands. I think by the end of 3 months, he wanted 5,000 downloads of, I don't know what period of time, maybe a week. And that seems like an awful lot to me. Like for somebody who's just starting a podcast, hasn't done it before, doesn't have a name, still is trying to find out what his voice is, what the podcast is going to be. But if you look at it and say, okay, I didn't get that. I got something more modest, and he did. He has, I don't know what the numbers are, but he had, something that you would expect for a new podcast. It was modest growth, but it was fine, right? And now he can use that information to improve, to help, not only help his podcast improve in terms of popularity, but also just in terms of what he's doing and if it's going to be popular. If it's not going to be popular, that's fine too. There are very niche people doing very niche things on the internet, and they could definitely be more popular if they in some ways did the kind of big YouTuber thing, right? I've talked about this before. There's so many YouTubers do everything not because they think it's cool. Oh my gosh, how do I get down there? How do I get down there? Ouch. Yeah, you're trapped here too, huh? Well, good luck. Oh gosh. Well, there we go. I always kind of like doing that. Kind of fun. Okay, so and to me, being able to not be good at something and not succeed is sort of a superpower. Wait, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. And I mean that. Like, there's a lot to be said for having the strength to fail in public. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of people they think they're going to look stupid. They think they're going to look stupid. They think people make fun of them. They think, they're not going to be as polished as they would like to be. And that's, all those things are maybe true. But at the same time, when you're starting to learn something or you're trying to do something and you're doing something new, you're going to suck. That's just life. Like, that's the way it goes. You're like, unless you're a prodigy, and even then, having met some prodigies, most of them are not what people think they are. Even if, I just think it takes time, and you just have to do it, and you have to put in the hours, and you just have to put in the work. That's and for almost anything, not just music, not just sports ball, just like virtually anything. It's all about putting in the time. And a lot of that time is going to be spent not doing what you want to do, right? And I don't mean just in terms of you don't like it. I mean just in terms of you're not accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish, because you have to learn how to accomplish it. And then once you learn how to accomplish it, then you have to get so comfortable that you can accomplish it just at your whim, You can just accomplish it whenever you want to. And sometimes everybody has good days and bad days, But what you want to get to the point is where, I learned this in music. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody does. But what separates like a really good professional musician from like a hobbyist, for example, is when you hit a bad note. Everybody does. Even the best musicians in the world. When you hit a bad note, the only thing that makes that note bad is what the notes that came before it and the notes came after it and the context. And so what I'm saying is, literally in any scenario, any note that you hit that's wrong can be justified. This is more in improvisation, obviously, but hold on. Let's make a bed and sleep for the night. Anything can be justified, like in improvisation in music, for example. You set it up, you accidentally, let's say you're playing, I don't know, it's like a C major scale, and you hit a B flat, which is a very out of tune note. You could easily, by knowing what you played up to the point that you hit that clam, you absolutely, that's just gently bleeding in my ear. you absolutely could make it be the coolest thing ever. You literally could make it be an iconic thing that everybody's going to remember when they go home from that gig. Everybody can remember that time, and it 100% came from a mistake. Like that is I have personally experienced it and seen it happen. It's 100% a thing. But it just takes the skill to know how you can do that. And let's say it's not a mistake. Let's say you're just not playing very well. Or you're not performing very well, right? A part of having skill is being to the point where even your lowest level of performance is extraordinarily high, right? So like the absolute base level lowest performance you possibly could do is still at this extremely high level, this expert level. And then if you think about it that way, then it's not really failing, and it's not succeeding. It's just different levels of success. If you're so skilled, I mean, I assume it's the same way with professional sports ball people. Like, they're performing at such a high, and I'm not comparing myself to a special sports ball person, but it's when there's a skill that involves, it's mental, but also involves an enormous amount of kinetic memory, and just having the not just the muscle memory but the strength to pull some stuff off. Oh gosh, scary. Is this a town? What the heck is this? Why is there an anvil here? What is going on? What is a town? Huh. I wasn't expecting that. So, and I think that's what people can learn to do, right? Look at all the kitties. It's learn to just understand that more often than not, life is iterative, and everything is just a process to what? It's just a process of learning how to succeed, And if you don't accomplish something, it really is a learning opportunity. And you can think about what you did wrong, and also, I think also learning how to really evaluate yourself and understanding how to evaluate yourself, and not being overly critical and overly hard. Right? Don't be overly critical of yourself. That's not helpful. Don't be overly hard on yourself. I think when I was a musician, I had this, for whatever reason, I always found like that emotionally, because, trying to do something and not achieving it can take an emotional toll. And I think that being a performing artist is an inherently emotional thing. It's very personal and emotional. And so if you're trying to accomplish something, it can be emotionally draining sometimes. But you can't live your life that way. You need to view this as a growing opportunity, as an opportunity to look at yourself and evaluate what you did and say, what happened? Why did I not achieve this? I really wanted to get this done and I didn't do as well as I thought I could. I go, okay, well, maybe it was this and maybe it was this. Or, I wasn't quite in the right headspace, right? I wasn't concentrating enough. I didn't warm up enough. I thought it was fine and I just didn't warm up before the gig, or I just didn't warm up before, my sports ball game. And I thought it was fine, but it wasn't. Things like that, and being brutally honest with yourself. Or even sometimes it's I had a professor in college who sort of drove this into us. Everybody makes mistakes. Making a mistake is fine. Nothing wrong with making a mistake. And again, when you get good enough, you realize, but you can just justify that mistake and nobody will know. But everybody makes mistakes. But what's unacceptable are stupid mistakes. Mistakes where you're being thoughtless, mistakes where you just start thinking about it. You just like, those are unacceptable. And he was the most kindest person if you made an honest mistake. But if you made a stupid mistake, he had no problem humiliating you in front of hundreds of people at a gig. And he wasn't being a jerk. He was getting a point across. He was teaching us that stupid mistakes are unacceptable because it means you're not doing your job. You have a baseline of conduct that's expected from you. And if you're not doing your job, then you're just slacking off. You're not, and I've kept that. That's a lesson that I've kept with me. It's a good one to learn is you can use this, you can really use not accomplishing what you want to do or failure, for example, as a learning opportunity to really improve yourself as not only in your performance, but as a person as well. Being able to take a criticism, having art. I say that people who aren't professionals have a tendency of every single one of their output, right? So in music or art, fine art, painting, sculpting, whatever. Every single one is this precious object. And any criticism of whatsoever, they can get extremely defensive or can really hurt their feelings. And there's a difference between being overly protective and passionate. There's nothing wrong with being passionate about something. I love people who are passionate about things. I think it's really cool. Being passionate about something is such a laudable characteristic, I need to go this way? Yeah. Okay. So we'll get out of here and go this way. We go this way? That doesn't really lead anywhere we need to go, but that's okay. We'll go this way. So try to use the opportunities where you do fail as something positive. Look at this and think to yourself, why did I fail? Maybe you're taking an exam and you didn't study enough. That's pretty obvious, right? But the other thing might be, maybe you're taking an exam and something comes really difficult for you. Something becomes very, very, or maybe you're taking some kind of test. You're getting some kind of accreditation or something, and for whatever reason, you look at other people. You think other people this comes a lot easier for some people than me. That's the world is not egalitarian, and things are not equal, and people are not equal, and everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. And maybe you're trying to do something really hard for you that comes easy for your friend or someone else. That's okay. That's okay. That's no problem. That's a normal thing. And I will tell you this. So, when I was a musician, I was a professional musician. I formally trained. I made my living off it for years. I was very proud of that because it's not an easy life. It's a very difficult life, and you don't make much money. Every single professional musician, with three exceptions, every single one I know has to have some kind of side hustle. So mine, I would teach music lessons. I would teach private music lessons for a couple hours, like 4 days a week, 3 hours, 4 days a week. That was my side hustle. And I know another friend of mine who's a piano player who tunes pianos as a side hustle. And oftentimes your side hustle can pay more than your vocation when you're a musician. That's the reality of it. Side hustle can easily pay more than your career. And so I know so many friends I know, and they're always there's a particular type of person who it's very important for them. I know a bunch of people like this that like they're pretty good. They're pretty good musicians. And some have an enormous amount of natural talent. A lot of them do. But it's super important for people to view them as musicians. And their view of what a professional musician is like Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber. And those are so far the exceptions of what the majority of working musicians do. No working musician, very few working musicians that I know of regularly go on world tours. Like I've played internationally at some gigs. I've gone to Europe and I've gone to a couple of places in Asia. I got extensively throughout North America, but that's that's some people tour more than others, but again, it's the idea that everything is this sort of, and again, the only reason they feel this way is because they don't understand. But also part of it, I think, is they don't put in the work. And this is what I mean by this. You may not have the most natural talent at something, right? But the thing I learned about teaching private lessons was that 70% of the time, the players that had the most talent, more than 70%, 80% of the time, the players that had the most talent ended up being not the best players. And here's what I mean by that. When you're learning something, particularly something that involves kinetic things, you know, and mental and like mental things, right? When you're learning this, there's a lot of things you have to just do. And so like, I'm a really good cook. I became a really good cook because I really enjoy doing the mundane things. When I was practicing, when I was, you know, first learning to be a musician, I was a kid learning to be a musician. One of the things I loved doing was just the absolute most mundane things, you know? Like just practicing scales. I love practicing scales. I still do. I don't really play much anymore, but you know, you have to appreciate the mundane things, because the thing is, that learning that gives you a technique and gives you a familiarity with it that is crucial. It's just crucial to being really good. And the problem with people it comes easy is it comes easy and they don't have to practice to accomplish it. And so they end up being not very good. And there's a guy the example I use. The guy I knew that used to play the same instrument as me, and he was a multi-instrumentalist, so he played guitar and other stuff too, but he was an extraordinarily talented 16-year-old, you know? But he went to first year of music school and dropped out, which is very common. It's getting a degree in music is extraordinarily hard. It's very, very difficult degree to get. And there's like a 80% dropout rate in the first 2 years. And he always would make kind of snotty comments to me when I was a professional, that I wasn't a real professional because I had to teach private lessons, or sometimes I would do some music copying gigs where like, this is funny. I was a really good copyist. And so I would do these niche gigs sometimes where I knew some composers. And so what a copyist does is basically take a composer's chicken scratch score. Holy crap, what the? Okay, we're not going to go in there because that's a death fall. So they take the composer's, you know, scribbled out score and turn it into a really nice looking score. And a lot of times, most of the time, it's done on computer, right? There's computer programs you input it in there, and then there's a lot of individual decisions that have to be made that a program just can't do it, because things like whether a stem goes up or down, whether it's connected to something else, all of this, it depends on context, right? It 100% depends on the context of what's being done and the instrument and things like that. And programs just can't do that. You need the human touch for that, 100%. And so one of the things I would do though is every once in a while, there's some weirdo composer who wants all of his stuff done the super old school way, by hand. Like ink, you know, pen and ink on paper for every single part. And boy, would I make bank on those. Like I for whatever reason, I just was really good at doing hand done scores. And so as you can imagine, it's a little bit like buying a custom car. Like you can spend a lot of money, you know, but, some composers were just weird about that and would regularly call me and have me do that, which was really cool, really neat. But so this friend in high school has always made snotty comments, and I never addressed it because I'm like, whatever. You're working for Verizon, you know, which is nothing wrong with that, but how dare you shade on me, you know? And but it's not worth it either, right? Is that oh, it is, look. I just find these ones kind of weird. Nothing wrong with it, it's kind of weird. Anyway. But he's a great example I always use of somebody who he had an enormous amount of natural talent, just a huge amount. Well, this person has the worst house I think I've ever seen. How do they get in and out of it? What is going on? There is a person in there too. Yeah. Boy. Good luck. You're gonna need it. But I always thought that was I always find it interesting that they have to slam somebody else in order to make themselves feel better because he didn't accomplish what he wanted to. He wanted to be a professional musician and he just didn't make it work. And part of it is because he didn't practice. Everything came easy to him, and he didn't practice the stuff that would make him a much better musician. Because what makes a really good 16-year-old musician does not make a really good 25-year-old musician. You know? I'm just saying. Like, and like I said, I can say this now because he sadly passed away way too young. Way too young. It's very tragic. So, you know, rest in peace, buddy. But there's just this. So that's why I say that a lot of times not succeeding at something and looking at it and really being able to critically say, here's why I didn't do it and here's what I need to work on is real. Stop it. It's really important. Like that's crucial in life. It's one of those lessons that can make you go very far. If you're, let's say, there's some people who are just mentally, and I'm not saying that you can't, like, I know some people who are tone deaf. I would still argue, if they put in the time, like really, really put in the time, they could be good. Because, like, one of the things I know in particular with music is, so much of it is technique. Like, 75% of being a really good musician is technique. Yes, there's creativity and skill and all stuff, but all that stuff can be developed. If this technique is so important, and I think it's that way for a lot of stuff. If you look at the technical aspects of something and really understand it, and I mean really, really understand it, have it down, understand it like you do your first language, then I think that you're going to end up being better than 80% of everybody out there. People will look at you and say, no matter what it is, right? Could be programming, could be music, could be cooking. People are going to look at you and say, they're really good, right? If you're programming, if you just learn the syntax and learn what it's like to construct a really good method or a really good function, whatever you're doing, and understand how it works and understand what it means, really, really understand the construction of it, you may not be as good as somebody who just grew up breathing code naturally, right? There's people like that. But you'll be really good, and people will consider you really good because you have the technique down. Same with cooking. Maybe you don't have the best palate in the world, right? Because some chefs have amazing palates. Maybe you don't. But if you just sit down and learn, you get some knife skills. Really get some knife skills. I'm talking good knife skills. Like learn how to do all the techniques you knew. Learn how to break down a chicken, you know, into its different reliable parts, and learn how to do it fast with good technique. Learn how food is constructed. Learn how recipes are constructed. How is food constructed? Learn all that, right? You'll be a really, really good cook. Same with music. Learn the techniques. If you learn the techniques, you'll be, hey, don't shut the door in my face, how dare you? You'll be really, really good. It's that way for anything. And if you're one of the people that comes naturally, think about what I'm saying, and think about how the people who it comes naturally for, those are the ones that end up special, right? And my belief is that everyone has, I'm going to steal this bed. Everyone has, I don't know this. Everyone has something that they're phenomenally naturally talented in. Every single person. Some people have more than one, but everybody has something that they're really, really, really naturally talented in. They just have to find out. They discover what it is. And you do. I firmly believe you do. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. That's maybe that's what this life is about. You know? Finding the stuff that's phenomenally important and really that you're really good at and just really makes you feel fantastic. But there's something else to be said for, do you do something that you kind of suck at? That's okay. When I was in high school, I did pole vaulting, and I wasn't very good at it. but I enjoyed it immensely. And I talked about, I don't, Pilger Outpost, I'm not a competitive person, and I'm not a sports ball person at all. And I think that I asked the coaches, can I just I just want to practice. I don't want to go to the meets. And they're like, no, if you practice, you have to go to the meets. And they made me go to the meets, and I was like, whatever. Because I didn't want to. I didn't care. I don't care about competing. I just wanted to do it, And the coaches were kind of jerks about it anyway, but it doesn't matter. Still a little salty about it. But it's funny, being a not sports ball person, I have a couple of friends who were professional sports ball people, and none of them, they weren't good enough to be in, the one played baseball, and so he was not good enough to be in the national baseball, whatever it's called, and another one played basketball, and he wasn't good enough to be in the NBA. And so my friend that played baseball played baseball in Italy. Oh no, I hate when they do this. They lock him up, and I don't like it. It's mean. I'm sorry, buddy. I'll let you out. There you go. And so my baseball friend played in some minor leagues and failed. Didn't do that very well. And so ended up going and having a successful career playing baseball in Italy. And my basketball player friend, who again he was not good enough to play in the professional league, So stairs up. Here we go. So he ended up playing basketball and for years in Lithuania. Lithuania apparently has a professional basketball league, and he played basketball in Lithuania. And I mean, there's people who would say, well, they didn't succeed because they didn't. His dream was to play in the NBA, and my other friend's dream was to play in the National Baseball League, and he kind of failed out of minor leagues and ended up going to Italy and had a good career in Italy. And same with my basketball playing friend in Lithuania. He just was not good enough to play in the NBA. But the heck? Okay. But would you consider those failures? I wouldn't. Like, they looked at a situation and they figured out a way to make it happen. And it wasn't what they initially thought of, but they made it work. And that's what I kind of mean about that is like looking at something and realizing, oh, this is not going to happen. Right? I'm not going to be an NBA player. But I'm good. And maybe I'm good enough to make a living playing sports ball in Lithuania. And he was. And he was a very good player in Lithuania and played for that team for years and years. I don't think he's playing with them anymore, but he did for a long time. And good for him. I was really impressed with that. It's a good lesson, that you can turn something that is beyond your control into something marvelous. And he had a really great life for himself and accomplished what he wanted to. And again, you can look at it and say, did he fail? I mean, he didn't play for the NBA, but he was a professional basketball player. He played in Lithuania, or he played baseball in Italy for years. Made a living at it. Good for them. Good for them. What are you doing here? Seriously, what are you doing here? Oh, your deals are crap. What'd you do with your other... You stupid jerk. He mistreats his animals. I don't like him. Anyway, that's kind of what I think about failure. Is that it's not really... You can use it to improve yourself, to improve your performance, and to improve just in general you as a human being. It can make you a better person. Don't be afraid of it. Don't go for the garbage of fail often and fail fast and often. That's just going to result in mediocrity. Because failing is difficult. I acknowledge that, but not succeeding is also difficult. Not quite the same as failing, but it's also difficult. But it can make you a better person. I have learned so much more from when I failed than from when I succeeded, just by a long shot. Nothing has driven my growth as a human being more than failing. I mean, succeeding is easy, right? Who can't succeed? Yes, some people are bad winners, or whatever, but succeeding is something immensely easy to deal with. Is that another town? I can't tell. What is that? What is that? What is that? Why is that single building here? That's so weird. Anyway, so that's my takeaway, I think, from this, is that I think that you have something you do that you are really, really talented at. You, listen to this right now. I firmly believe you do. And maybe you don't know what it is yet. You probably don't. You need to find out what that is. You need to work on it and find out what that is. Maybe you like it. Maybe you don't. I think it's important to know, though. And that can be, in some ways, maybe that's the meaning of life, to discover that. But, like in a Buddhist sense, that really it's the journey, right? It's everybody's individual journey is unique to them. Nobody can help you with it. There's not a cheat. You can't go look it up. You can't go look up a walkthrough, right? It's 100% unique to you. And figuring out how to manage that, I think is an immensely important life lesson. And this is my least favorite biome, and it's like one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. Oh my gosh. All right, let's go. I would see those things as like, looks like a cathedral or something, those huge ice towers. And, there's things that I've done. I feel like that sometimes you don't always know if you're going to have a lot of natural talent for stuff. That type of thing can be unlocked too, I've seen musicians who were not very good when they started out, and something just clicked, and they had an enormous amount of natural talent. They just didn't know how to access it until they did. But again, the work is what's going to make you put in the hard work. Put in the hard work, and you will be rewarded. Sometimes the reward is just being a better person. I'll be honest. That's okay. Be a better person. That's kind of the theme of a lot of my channel stuff too. I think I think sometimes people are mean, and I don't like it. I think sometimes, but that's okay, because we can just be better people. We can be nice and accepting and kind, and just work hard to make ourselves better. And if we don't succeed, that's okay. We'll just dust ourselves off and take a really brutally honest look at ourselves. And why did that not work? Why did that not succeed? Okay, I learned from this. Now I'm better from it. And if there's some things maybe I just need to get my head in the game more. Maybe there's something I need to do. Maybe I just don't quite have the coordination yet for this, or quite have the technique for this, or quite have whatever, right? It's absolutely distinctly possible that I just don't quite have it. Good to know, and good to admit to yourself, because a lot of people don't do that. It's so funny. my friend who played Lithuanian basketball always says people regularly, like just regular people, regularly challenge him to play when they finally play basketball in Lithuania because they think he's not a very good player. And he used to be a professional, even though he couldn't make the NBA. He used to be a professional, and he typically just beats the crap out of him every single time. Because people underestimate how good, like, professionals are. Like, I think they genuinely do. And in professional sports, professional musicians, whatever, people really underestimate how much better than the average, hooper. That's a thing, right? The average basketball player just off the street is. Like, people don't realize how good, even in Lithuania, but you're going to be a professional in Lithuania, you're still better than 95% of the players out there. So there's not really such a thing as failure. There's just opportunities to improve yourself. And if you think about it, just for your own mental health, you'll be so much happier with yourself if you just look at this as an opportunity to improve. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. You have to keep your eye on the prize, and you know what you want to do. And just look at yourself and say, okay, here's why I think it didn't work. So here's what I think I need to do to get better and to make it work. And I think that's a commendable goal to achieve. It's not easy. It's you can trust me when I tell you that it's a learned skill, and being able to do that is a learned skill. It's just something you have to learn. It's not a big deal. You just have to learn it. You can do it. I believe in you. Let's make a bed, because it's getting to be nighttime. Let's do that. Put one here. Sure. Why not? Where'd it go? Down here? Stuff that. Oh my gosh. Let's screw that up. Up. Do this. Oh, that was a pig. It's like, what was that sound? Okay. Go this way, I think. This way? Yeah, that's the way. I like to try to make the bed facing where I'm going. Really? I know. I know, buddy. I know. There. I do think that's a pretty good place to end this video. Thank you so much for tagging along with me as I talk about failure and not succeeding and how you can turn that into a positive thing in your life. Sometimes it's not easy, but I think it's a worthwhile skill to have. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time for another Exploring Minecraft where we take on some of life's interesting subjects. I'll see you next time.